This episode is brought to you by Portland Distro. If you like underground music, movies, and more, go to portlanddistro.com for licensed merch, vinyl, CDs, and more. Plug in the discount code 10OFF, TENOFF, for a 10% discount at portlanddistro.com. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Another week, another episode of the Everything Went Black podcast. Before we get going, I'd like to thank everyone who has joined the Patreon community. For as little as $1 a month, you can get access to bonus content, and for $5 a month, in addition to the bonus content, you get early access to all episodes. I'd also like to take this opportunity to direct you. Once you have finished listening to Everything Went Black, you can check out Into the Necrosphere, black metal and death metal extreme music extraordinaire. Jackie Smith brings you weekly episodes. Horror Wolf 666 for interviews with luminaries in the horror world. Iblis Manifestations for all things occult and spiritual. And if that's still not enough, head over to Necromaniacs, the horror-based podcast that I co-host with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid. For this week's episode, we have Trevor Shelley-DeBrauw of Pelican and Rlyr. He has some news about a new Rlyr record, as well as developments on the Pelican front. Trevor and I go way back. A lot of shared history on the road, and he also dead wrongs me on some facts about Yes. So check it out. Trevor, it's been a while. I feel like a lifetime has passed since we last spoke.
Well, I mean, it's been a lifetime since anyone has spoken to anyone, right? Or, I mean, so to speak.
Yeah, it's funny, the weird time dilation that's going on. I know that we spoke probably when your solo record came out. I think that might have been the last time, and that wasn't really that long ago. But it seems like it was a different age, like a different epoch or something like that. You know.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the last time we spoke in an interview capacity. I think we've had social interactions since then, but even the social interactions have been pretty dried up.
Yeah. You came through town with Pelican, and
that's right.
Played at Brooklyn Bazaar, and that was, I think, the last time we have been in personal contact there.
Even that must have been like 2019 or something like that. So yeah, it's been a good number of years. Yeah. And I think I was thinking about this earlier, actually, because like the pandemic has made it feel like it's been a long time since I've talked to a lot of the people that I consider like friends that live far away. Because when you start touring, like your social circle, when you're growing up, your social circle is largely dictated by the people that are around you geographically, right, or locally.
Sure.
And then when you start touring, it's sort of like because of crisscrossing paths and people that you tour with and that kind of thing, like suddenly you're drawn closer into these tighter, closer relationships with people that are from further away. And when we were touring all the time, there would be people that I would see more frequently that lived far away than, live here locally. And obviously, as our touring schedule has adjusted and evolved over time and we tour less, like some of those same people I don't see for years at a time. But even that, like it now that the distance of this pandemic and the isolation that it's caused has made a span like 3 years, maybe in 2019 would have felt like it wasn't that long of a time to go without seeing you. But now it feels like this eternity has passed, like you said.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I'm on the same page with you about the touring. And, every year I would bank on being out to the West Coast at least once a year for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So all my like West Coast friends like Jay Bennett, and those, Aaron Harris, people like that. I know that I'd see them maybe once a year at the least. And then, obviously people in other parts of the country, I make it out there maybe a little bit more frequently, but having to go from that to like not seeing anyone barely at all, it was like pretty, if you want to think about it in this term, it's a way of driving people insane. It's like a very easy way to break someone's mental capacity, like doing something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But let's talk about like fun stuff, man. I think everyone's already been through all these types of conversations, and we want to look more towards a more brighter future, I think.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the new Rlyr record, which is about to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've spent some time with it, and yeah, it's great, and then it's not much of a departure from the other records, but I feel like the songs might have been maybe more evolved and better realized. And so, did you have more time to develop the songs and all that in this time around?
Yeah. So, I mean, we started writing and, in fact, started playing some of these songs as early as the tour for the last album, which came out in 2018. And we were pretty much done writing and ready to record when the pandemic hit. Steven and I live here in Chicago, but Colin's across the state border in Michigan. And with a decreased capacity for travel and a decreased capacity for meeting up in person, and definitely an aversion to being in a closed environment like a studio, we just sort of like sat on the songs and kept working on them and kind of like, just kind of kept refining them, I guess. So many of them are kind of similar to how they were in 2020 or whatever, but other ones like really evolved and changed and shifted, and like I think the time served them well, really.
Now let me ask you this question, because this is being somebody who also works on the creative process. So there were versions of these songs that you played live and on tour,
Mm-hmm.
some of the songs, and then you went back sort of to the lab and maybe refined those. But before you recorded those songs for the record, did you have an opportunity to reconvene with the band and flesh them out further?
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like, well, Steven and I continued practicing regularly, and
Okay.
Colin would come down every few months or something like that.
All right. I wasn't sure.
There's not like a whole lot, like the whole Rlyr like writing regimen. Like, it's not like we don't do like writing sessions at home or by ourselves or anything like that. It's like every single riff, every single song is written in the practice space with us together. It like starting kind of like from improvisation and then kind of like seeing what parts fit together and then just like letting it flow and turn into a song on its own accord. So for us, it was like to have the extra time to work on the songs is really just a matter of like playing them and seeing how they feel and continuing to let them do their thing. And like for some of them, like the first couple tunes on the record, Destructure and Rack, those were very set, regimented songs where they just sort of like tightened over time. Whereas a song like Codeine Horse, the last song on the record, which started its life as like a 1 minute transition in our live set that we would just sort of like jam between one song and another song. It started as like a 1 minute thing, and then it turned into a 5 minute thing, and then by the time it got on the record, it's 15 minutes long.
Wow. I prefer that method of writing where everyone's in a room. I just think it feels more like a band, really.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like hooked on it. I no longer, I don't really have the capacity to sit by myself and write anymore. I've just gotten so hooked on that other method, and that really informed like the stuff that I wrote for the last Pelican record as well. That it's just like when I'm in a room especially when I'm in a room with a drummer, it just like makes the process a lot more interesting and collaborative, and like the ideas flow a lot more easily for me.
Now, for a time with Pelican, because of proximity, you guys had to work separately, right?
That's true, yeah. And certainly that's part of why Nighttime Stories took so long to finish, was because we could only get our songs so far before we needed that interaction in that space together. But we're also bad at allocating time, because like every time we would get together, it would be for a show, and we were bad at allocating time for writing, which I think going forward, I say that now. I say like going forward, we're going to be a lot better about that. But it's been like 2-3 years since the record was written, and like we ended up grounded by a pandemic. So that process is not advancing as quickly as it could have.
Did Brian move back to the Chicago area?
He did, yeah.
But Larry's still out in LA, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to get Larry back.
From what I see, just on social media, he's got a pretty flourishing like thing going on out there. I think, right?
Yeah, I think he's quite happy with his West Coast sun-filled lifestyle.
yeah, totally. Yeah, and that's like the key guy when it comes to writing is the drummer for sure.
Yeah, in my book for sure. Yeah, I mean, getting in a room with a drummer is like paramount importance for my inspiration.
Where did you guys record the record?
Rlyr, Electrical Audio.
Oh, okay.
We recorded with Sanford. We booked Studio B, but Studio A was open, so they let us have it, which was really advantageous.
Now, was it recorded, during the quarantine era that we just went through, or how did you guys work all that?
Yeah, it was recorded summer of last year, and it was just a matter of like production issues that are kind of like holding up why it's taking so long. But yeah, it was during summer. So, and Electrical Audio have been really tight about their pandemic restrictions and stuff. So like we had to wear masks at all times. There was sanitizer everywhere.
Wow.
So yeah. I think Steven took his mask off to play drums, but that was about it.
I was gonna say that since that's like a physical, exercise basically, to play drums with a mask on must be very difficult.
Yeah, and the singing with a mask on would probably be pretty hard too, I imagine. But
well, yeah, for sure.
Not that that's a problem for us.
Well, that's why I was gonna say. I was like, it's a good thing you guys don't have a vocalist. Have you ever thought about being in a band with vocals? Because this is the second, instrumental band that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in bands with vocals. I did that band. I feel like I sent you that band Let's Pet that I was in, where all of us sang.
Oh yes. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I stand corrected. Okay.
Yeah, and I've been in like hardcore bands over the years and stuff like that too. So. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's like there's something about my guitar writing style that takes up so much space that it's like hard to figure out where vocals would fit. And I think that started in Pelican. Like Pelican, we never intended to be an instrumental band. We just couldn't find anybody to sing. And then like Laurent and I sort of evolved a writing style where we took up the space and the frequency spectrum where a singer might occupy. And we kept developing that to the point that now I'm kind of stuck in it. To a certain extent anyway.
There's only one guy I think that could sing for Pelican, and that would be Eugene Robinson, probably.
Yeah, sure. Bring it on.
That thought has crossed my mind actually on many occasions. Think like when I listen to you guys, because he has like a very uncanny knack for vocal patterns and placement.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Rlyr got to play some shows with Oxbow. That was really fun. That would have been after the last album.
That's awesome, man. I have you heard Bunwell is the other project he's in?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, I just had Eugene on as a guest, a few weeks back, and it was around the release of the new Bunwell record, and it's good. It's like most of the members live in Europe, and Eugene, obviously lives in the West Coast, and
right.
It's more. I hate to throw the term noise rock, but it's in that you can call it that, in that style. And not as like complex as like some of the Oxbow stuff, but still excellent though.
Well, that sounds cool. I got to check it out.
Yeah. So you mentioned Laurent. He's back in the band, from my understanding.
Yeah, he's joining us for shows this year. Dallas sort of dipped out of the band during the pandemic, and we had these shows coming up. So I just asked Laurent, we've been working on these reissues with him for Thrill Jockey of the first 3 albums. And he was down. I mean, he's been I think he's been itching to play guitar and stuff. So it's been fun reconnecting with him and jamming on the songs.
That's awesome. Where are these dates happening? Like, what part of the country are they in?
They're all in Europe. So we're headlining Dunkfest in Belgium in late May. And then we're semi-psychotically, but we didn't want to do like a 3 or 4 week tour. But then we come home and then we fly back in a couple of weeks and we do Freak Valley Fest, Hellfest, and like a few headline dates.
Have you guys played Hellfest before?
We have not.
It's awesome. It's like, I mean, it's probably like Kiss is probably playing or something like that the same day you.
I know.
Yeah, it's like insane.
I forget. It's a crazy lineup, and they've had us. They've been rolling the bill since 2020, and they keep having us on. So we're excited to finally get to do it.
Yeah, we played it once a few years ago, and I was like blown away. I was like, oh wow, there's Bruce Dickinson over there. Okay, cool. There's like Dave Mustaine just walked by. I'm like, oh great, this is like real fun, man. It's definitely trippy to play like these big European festivals with some of these like, bands that you might have grew up listening to,
Well, and also like I feel like so many people from our community have done it. Like I was starting to develop a real sense of like always a bridesmaid, never a bride with Hellfest, because like every year friends of mine would play it and I'd be like, when are we ever going to get asked? And then like, when it finally happened, I was just elated.
That's awesome, man. That's a lot of fun doing Hellfest.
Yeah. I'm super stoked. And that's the last show of the tour, so I think it's going to be a real blowout. It's going to be fun.
So is Laurent going to be doing any, writing, or is it going to go back to the same dynamic you guys had prior to him leaving?
We have not really crossed that bridge yet. I think for us, for now, we're just sort of focused on the shows and we obviously haven't played any shows with him and stuff. And like, I don't really know where he's at in his life, and we don't know where we're at in our creative lives. So I think like for us, it's sort of like this is the task at hand, and then like we'll kind of figure out what's next after that.
It is kind of weird actually after all this time. I mean, not all this time meaning that you guys haven't played together, but I mean all this time of being like off the road and relatively inactive, and where the band is more conceptual as opposed to a tactile part of reality, like to suddenly have dates and sort of like these things that you have to do that involve live performances, so yeah, it can be a little bit overwhelming, you know what I mean? So how are you taking to all this right now?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been like, it's a little confounding because the last Pelican show was December 2019, so it will have been 2.5 years by the time we play again. And yeah, it's just been really confusing. I mean, it like the band, like you said, almost became an abstract thing because like at the beginning of the pandemic, we were like, what do we do? Do we like send demos and like try to write, or like can we make a record remote? And like there were a few like aborted attempts at trying to do something like that, and then unfortunately, the all the stuff with Hydra had happened where Aaron announced that he was folding the label completely and that we were free to take our records wherever we wanted to go, and then we struck up this deal with Thrill Jockey that they are going to re-release the first 3 Hydra Head albums. And we decided to do sort of like expanded, remastered versions. And so kind of delving in on this archival project and like trying to find all the original unmastered audio and like what bonus stuff we could find, that became sort of like the creative outlet for the band. And I think that kind of gave us like sort of a life raft to sort of take us through that phase of the band. You know what I mean? It kind of gave us like, even though it wasn't like doing something new, it was like a sort of a creative outlet for the band to try and like reinvest ourselves in these old records and like what other ephemera surrounding those things there was out there that we could utilize. And that just sort of like dovetailed into being able to do shows with Laurent again, and like that, the whole thing has felt really fluid and yeah, I don't know, almost like preordained in a weird way. You know what I mean?
That's going to be cool. Like, hopefully, there's some stateside dates because I'd like to, obviously when you guys come to the New York area, I'll be there and I'd like to see Laurent again. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, we haven't really figured out anything outside of the Midwest yet. Like we're doing like one underplay in Chicago next month, and then we're doing like a weekend in September. But I know that like when all the reissues come out in earnest, like I think we want to do like a West Coast run and an East Coast run at the very least.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
So we'll figure all that out when the time comes. But yeah, it's just really funny too because Pelican has never been like a band with any sense of retrospection at all. Like the last couple tours we did, we were excited because we had written enough material with Dallas at that point that we were like, okay, well now we're not doing any pre-Dallas material and we were only playing songs from the last two records. And we thought that for us, that was like a major victory. So like for us now, it's like, now we're not playing anything from those records. And it's like this completely new, unexplored mode of the band for us.
That's kind of cool though.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting because like, I don't have like a nostalgic bone in my body. So like to try and engage with that and learning how to engage with nostalgia and not just nostalgia, but like, viewing the past through the prism of the present. Like it's been a really fun and interesting experience because like I feel like there's so much that I've done as a musician since then that like I have sort of like this new perspective on all of that material. And we're playing all these songs that we haven't played in so long and had to relearn them and like kind of not just relearn the songs, but relearn how to play guitar like that again, and bring the sort of like the new skill sets that we have to those.
That's always a very interesting thing to do when you revisit older material because like some of this stuff was like 20 years like and your technique is probably improved and like the way you approach the instrument is different and you really are creating a whole new image of that song. It's not going to sound like it sounded in the year 2000 or whatever,
Yeah, and hopefully people think that it sounds as good or better. But we'll see. There's always like some stickler that's going to be like, "Oh, you were really much better back then."
Oh, probably a German. A German will tell you that probably.
That's the stereotype. It's everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. You were better the last time. The time before, not so much.
Yeah. We used to always joke that like the first rehearsal was really the best.
You know what I think of sometimes? How like you think about. I don't even know if this is true about how they say like every 7 years you have all new cells in your body. That's how it kind of feels when you revisit like when you're gonna add like old material to the set. It's almost like someone completely different entity you're introducing to this thing.
Yes, like some of these riffs, I was trying to figure out how to play them. I was just like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any fucking sense. But it's just like, yeah, it's a completely different mentality that evolves over time. And like, yeah, it's sort of like the same way that I look back on my childhood and like you think about things that you do when you're a kid and you're like, why would you fucking do that? But it's because that's just like your frame of reference for reality. And it's the same with guitar. It's like nobody fucking showed me how to play guitar. I just sort of like created my own method. I never took lessons. I never never did anything. I just learned how to play along with like punk records and invented this entire vocabulary, this musical vocabulary. And it evolves over time, naturally.
Yeah, for sure. Because even within my own like little efforts that I have, there's like certain things when I go back to some of our older material, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this is those couple of years when I was doing this. You know what I mean? And now I'm doing this, and it's like different. Now let me ask you, having like, how do you differentiate the material that would be a Rlyr song or a Pelican idea?
Well, that's just really a matter of like, who am I in the room with when I'm writing a riff, right?
Okay.
Because like I
Right.
said, like Relayer, we don't write anything um, except in the practice space when we're together.
Oh, so you don't
So,
even have like ideas
oh
from
no, I
home.
don't even. I know I don't
Oh,
walk in the
wow.
practice space with riffs. I just
Okay.
we everything is written in the room. So it's like
Wow.
literally like, and it's not like I ever stop Relayer practice and I'm like, guys, that's a Pelican riff. You guys can't have that. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
But
That's
it's
pretty free, actually. I like that. That's completely alien to me, but that's an interesting idea, though.
yeah, no, that's what I mean. It's like it all comes from a spot. I mean, like the songs are really like tightly composed for the most part. Codeine Horse and like Descent of the Night Bison from our first album are kind of like the outliers in that regard because they have like sort of a degree of improvisation baked into the structures.
Right.
But the other songs are all tightly structured, but they come from a place of improvisation where it's sort of like I'll just start playing something, and then like Steven will start playing along, and then like it, when something clicks, we just take note of it mentally, and then we go back to it, and then like we just keep jamming on it and seeing where it goes, and then like over time it turns into a song.
Do you demo all this stuff out and kind of look at the arrangements, or even that the arranging is done like sort of in the space too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all done in the space, and like we do a lot of like rehearsal space recordings,
Right.
and like I spend a lot of time like reviewing those and listening to them, and like smoking some weed and listening to it, so I get a different mentality, kind of like removed from it, so I can have like sort of a third party perspective almost. And yeah, and then like more ideas will pop into my head that way, and then I just try them out the next time I'm in the space. I don't really like when I'm listening to the rehearsal recordings, I don't usually like do it with a guitar in my hand and like try to figure out what else to do. It's all just sort of like inside my head, and then like when I'm together with them again, work on it some more.
That's pretty cool, man. It kind of scares me a little bit to think about that, honestly, but it's kind of cool though. I that's an excellent way of approaching it, I think.
But that's how I write with Pelican too. It's like, and like obviously Dallas had a completely different writing method, and he was really into demoing at home, and like I mean I could walk you through his process, but it's like it's pretty, to me it's pretty alien, where it's kind of improv based, but it's at home by himself and to a click, and then like he like sorts through the riffs, and then like he starts arranging stuff, and like that's all fine and good, and it like obviously worked, and like he came up with some fucking incredibly sick shit.
Yeah.
But for me, it's if it's not in the room, it's really hard for me to like to generate the ideas. The ideas for me come from sort of like the interaction between one another, and like when you ask something like, "What's the difference between a Pelican riff and a Relayer riff?" and how the energy that I pull out of Steven or that Steven pulls out of me is completely different than the energy that Larry and I have together. And what comes out just naturally flows from that relationship.
That's I'm considering that right now. That's pretty cool. I completely I used to think that, I was like kind of a free thinker, but now I realize how uptight I am, man. And I'm like, wow, that's like a very organic kind of flow based method, which like I said, it kind of frightens me a little bit.
Hey, the first jam where you're like, oh, we finished a song, we have to start another one. That first practice can be pretty scary. And like I've almost noticed that the arc for a Relayer song in particular is usually like the first practice sucks, working on a new song. Then the second one, something really clicks and connects, and then like there's suddenly like 3 minutes of something to work on, and then like you go through a dead period where it's like, fuck, what do we do with this? And like it doesn't go anywhere, and then suddenly things just start happening.
A video just came out recently.
Yes.
For Relayer. Now, what's like what's that process? Because I was looking at this and I was like, man, this is like It makes me think it's almost like I feel like I should be on some sort of drug or something when I'm watching the video.
Yeah, so the video is by Bobby Marcos from Cloakroom,
Okay.
and literally I saw a bunch of his videos. He's a friend. Like Cloakroom are totally tight buds,
Well,
and
actually,
like
if I remember correctly, they toured with you when you guys came through Brooklyn last time. Yeah.
yep, that's correct. Yeah, we played loads of shows with him. Both bands have Rlyr and Pelican, and I saw that he was doing more stuff, and like his aesthetic seemed so aligned with Relyr's like art direction. Less so the new album than the first two albums, but the first two albums sort of have like that sort of retro futuristic minimalist design, and like his videos are really similar to that in insofar as they're really geometric and trippy, and I just showed it to like Colin and Steven, and I was like, dude, like we should see if Bobby could do a video for us. And like he pulled it together really fast because like it was like after the first single from the record came out, and we already had the plan to put out Real Air second. Uh, and it's like, I wonder if he could turn a video around in time. Like, it doesn't seem like that would be feasible. And I hit him up, and he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And he, he turned it in the day before it came out, so it all worked out.
That's
But
awesome. But yeah,
yeah,
the geometric stuff is what really when I was watching it because you texted me a version of it, and I was like, it seems similar to some of the things that one might see if they were under the influence of some kind of psychedelic. From what I've read, from some of the research that I've done, that might be something that a visual aspect that might arise out of an experience like that.
my favorite is when I'm hitting the guitar harmonics and like these little eyeball shapes start shooting lasers.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, dude. I just like that he like it's not just like weird geometric abstraction. He's really like editing to the cuts in the songs, and like he really like nailed the rhythm of the song in like these animations too. Yeah, I was really blown away.
Well, that's what makes it even more psychedelic because there is that reactive nature to it, where there's like
Yeah.
something in the song happens and then the visual is edited to that, so there's like this very unnerving kind of reaction to it.
Yeah, and then he has like archival footage of planes and stuff in the background, and he's like really tapping into the fact that the song is called Real Air.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So actually, what it's with Gilead Media, right? Is that who's putting this out?
That's correct.
Yeah. That's a pretty interesting label, man. They have a bunch of cool stuff, a bunch of cool releases. Do you know that guy personally? Because there's a bunch of stuff going on with that label recently.
Yeah, Pelican played Migration Festival a few years back, and I kind of knew him through the internet before that. But yeah, that's where I met him in person, and yeah, I mean for Rlyr, it's sort of like we don't really know where we fit in the music landscape, and like Gilead is like such an interesting and like experimental label in terms of like their approach to heaviness, that it just seemed like that made a lot more sense than maybe some other things that we could do with the record. And yeah, we were really excited when he was interested in it.
I think that band Mizemore is on that label, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, that's one of the more notable bands I think he puts out is that particular stuff. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that and Vow, and then of course those two just did like a collaborative album. So it's sort of like, yeah, the two biggest on the label just joining forces. That's pretty wild.
Yeah,
that's a pretty awesome record.
Yeah, it's really cool that Laurent's back in the band because it's talking about that made me think about the tours that we've done together. And that's been a lot of that's some of the good memories from the past. Us and you guys and Isis and a couple of runs we did in Europe. Not full tours, but we crossed paths a bunch of times over in Europe, and it's just been really cool.
Yeah, the first night I met you was at that show that we played together at Gabe's Oasis, and Laurent broke his finger. Do you remember?
I don't remember Laurent breaking his finger.
Yeah, we were loading out,
Oh man.
and remember the alley behind Gabe's
Oh yeah,
has
yeah.
that decline or whatever.
Oh wait,
So
hold on a second. It's coming back. That's right.
so the van is like sort of parked at a downhill
Yes.
angle, and like his finger was in the sliding door, and like I don't remember, somebody like nudged it ever so gently and it just closed on his finger, just the fingertip, just the
Oh
tip.
man. Yeah.
But
Now I
like,
remember.
yeah, I mean, dude, that was like potentially tour ruining, and he played through it. I mean, dude was a fucking soldier. We all were at that period. But yeah, I mean, that's harrowing. He had a really fucked up looking finger for the rest of that tour.
Yeah, Gabe's Oasis. I think the load in was kind of rough in that place, if I remember right.
Yeah, it was a second story bar in Iowa City. And I think by the time we played that show, which would have been 2009, the back stairs were repaired. But like I did many load ins to Gabe's Oasis over the years where they had the most rickety
Yes.
rusted metal staircase leading up to that venue. And like, man, it was legendary. Like people would talk about that all over the country, like the load in at Gabe's Oasis, and like who's going to fucking die loading in there.
Yeah,
Because
because
it
I
seemed
remember
inevitable.
I remember rolling up to that place, and before we got there, I was like, "Oh yeah, this venue. It's like a ladder you have to climb up to get your gear into the room."
Not quite, but yeah, that was a really dangerous. Yeah. I remember playing there with my old band, Long Live Nothing, played there with Vita Blue. Did you ever hear that band?
I want to say that didn't Level Plane put out something by them?
That's quite possible. They
Yeah.
were sort of like screamo, but they had like almost like this like jammy, noisy quality to them. Yeah, they were a really fucking cool band, and like that venue has like all kinds of piping and rafters over the stage, and like their singer Matt was just like climbing the rafters and like hanging upside down playing guitar and like just going completely crazy. And that was a really phenomenal show. But that was definitely when the stairs
Yeah.
for the
No, for
load-in was
sure.
at peak dangerousness.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird city to start a tour in, though. I thought, you know.
Yeah, and that show and maybe a couple other shows on that run were with that band Dredge, which didn't really have any relationship to what we were doing. They were sort of like alt rock, but they had like some sort of inroads into our world, and I'm not really sure how that happened.
What's
It was
kind of
like some weird.
funny is like when I got the itinerary for the tour, right? Because part of that tour was with Wolves in the Throne Room too, I think, right?
Yeah, that was when they were. That was right around when Two Hunters came out, and they were just blowing up.
Yeah. And I saw this band on that was on the itinerary for like three or like maybe 4 or 5 days, I think, and it was like DREDG, right?
Yep,
And I was
that
like,
was the band.
this is like, well, who are these guys? Are they some like Eastern European like black metal band or something? You know, I never heard of them, you know.
Yeah,
But apparently, in the '90s, they had some late '90s or so that they were like they had a minor success somewhere. They had a single or something like that.
yeah.
I don't know.
We had already been out with them on the Taste of Chaos tour, which was Kevin Lyman, formerly of Warped Tour, his attempt to do like a heavy style tour. So the year we were on Taste of Chaos, it was like Deftones and Thrice. That's where we met the Thrice dudes. And then like some bands that I really have no relationship to, like Story of the Year and Atreyu. I don't know if you remember them. Like they were a Victory metalcore band. That was a weird tour, but Dredge were on that one. And I think they were similarly to us on the second stage for the baby bands.
Right. Yeah. That they're like weird guys, if I remember correctly. I don't know. I don't
I
really.
I just remember it was like we were playing like those 300, 400 cap rooms, and they had like a guitar tech with them,
Yeah.
and it just felt like out of place.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. We toured with Creator a few years ago, just a short run like out to Ozfest, and we were playing like 400 capacity rooms with them, and they had a full like bass tech, drum tech, guitar tech, sound guy. Like they didn't even come off the bus. Like they actually had their techs do the sound check, and they would,
Holy shit!
They would sound check for like the entire afternoon. You know how like sometimes those bands like that are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of. I was like, man, you guys must be like hemorrhaging money with this crew. You know?
It's insane.
Yeah. But whatever. It's Creator. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We toured with Opeth in 2005, and I remember they did their own sound checks, but I remember their sound checks would just be like these epic jam sessions. They would just like do like these psychedelic jams for like 2 hours, and then we'd get like 5 minutes to sound check.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I remember many times being the opening band on tours, like big package tours, where you're sound checking while people are standing there in front of waiting for the show to start. You know.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the whole trip, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were good times, man. I enjoyed all those. That was fun, and probably my favorite of our runs together was the epic. Wavering Radiant, Isis, Pelican, Tombs tour, and that was a full U.S. tour. That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a really rad tour.
Yeah.
Though that was sort of when we were winding down on touring. I think like some of us were more into still being on the road than others, but overall, I think that was a really fun tour. And like Isis, Jesus Christ! I mean, that to me, like I know that there's some debate over like, when they peaked or whatever. But for me, they went out on a high point. I just thought that record and those shows were so fucking good.
I think that record's great, and that might actually be one of my favorite Isis records, honestly.
I think hands down the recording, the songs, the performances, I think hands down it's their best record.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety on there. There's a lot of different diversity of what they're doing within the songs. And I just remember like everyone was such good friends on that tour at that point, and
yep.
My history with you guys goes back. We had some history, and it was cool, and I've been friends with Jeff and Aaron Harris and those guys for damn. I met Aaron Harris when he was still in high school. Yeah. Yeah, so that was just a lot of fun, and I don't know. I just think back to that time and how great that was, and things are not like that anymore, but that's just the way it is. That's how life goes.
That was definitely the peak of a certain era. Yeah.
Yeah. So, dude, thanks for spending time, man. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to hearing, getting a vinyl copy of the new Rlyr, and I'm definitely looking forward to the Pelican reissues. Now, as far as the bonus material, what sort of stuff is going to be part of these expanded editions?
So we tracked down some stuff that we hadn't really done much or anything with, like everything from like oddball split stuff, but then also like we tracked down a bunch of demos and stuff like that. Like we did demos for all of these records that we didn't really ever do anything with. It was just sort of like figuring out how to get the songs down in a recording studio so that we knew how it would go when we did the actual records. So we unearthed a bunch of that stuff, and then kind of the crown jewel of it all is we went back to the boards and remixed the entire Fire in Our Throats album.
Oh wow!
Which we haven't told anybody about yet. So this is a Everything Went Black exclusive.
Damn.
Yeah, we went. And because I was just archiving all this stuff. I dug out all the tapes and I was digitizing everything. And our buddy Greg Norman, who recorded that album, was doing the digital transfers for us. He was like, "Listen, if you would ever want to remix Fire in Our Throats, I am a much better engineer now than I was then, and there's a lot of things when I listen to that album that I know that I would do differently now if I had another crack at it. And he was like, just if you guys want, just let me know and I'll take a crack at it. And we all discussed it, and we were like, yeah, let's we were like, just send us one and we'll discuss. And he sent us one remix, and it was like, holy shit, this is way better.
Wow.
So we went from there, and yeah, man, it's just like completely because that record was probably our biggest record at the time of that initial run, and but we were always kind of disappointed. We always felt like we kind of rushed the recording and the mixing a little bit, and yeah, getting another crack at it really like opened it up, and like everything sits a lot better in the mix now. And man, I'm so excited for people to hear it.
That kind of goes hand in hand to what we were talking about earlier about like when you go back and try to execute those older songs as a different player, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of translates over to the engineer who has had a couple of decades of
Oh yeah,
experience under his belt. So that's actually pretty fantastic, really.
yeah, totally. No, he brought a completely different skill set to it, and like I'm really excited.
So was that mixed straight off a 2-inch tape back then, or was it digital and now it's all in Pro Tools, or how did that work out?
That is our sole album that was analog only the whole way. But all the other ones were either Pro Tools or were like a hybrid of the two, and that one was analog all the way. So we had to transfer the 2-inch reels, and yeah, and just he redid it this time. He redid it digitally, like he did it from the digital transfers. But yeah, that was the one. That was the analog record.
That's awesome, man. I mean, it'd be really cool to have those side by side, and yeah, it's funny. I thought I would never say this, but man, I gotta be honest, man. Like working in Pro Tools you have so much more resources at your fingertips than you did back in the late 90s or whenever, when you had like a couple of really good compressors and like a couple of good EQs and a decent board. You know what I'm trying to say?
No, I know. And like the mixing process is so different now, because like he'll send mixes and we're not in the room with him. He'll send mixes, and then we all make notes, and then he can go back and address the notes. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oh, this needs to be louder here, or like we could use a little boost of high end here. And so the mixing process as a result took like months. But yeah, you can do all that. Whereas like in the old days, in the 90s, when everything was analog, it was like you are in the room, and what comes out of the room at the end of the day is the mix.
Yeah, basically, because no one really had like an automated board back then. Like it was to
Right,
go to
totally.
like a room that had an SSL, you'd have to spend like $1,500 a day or something like that, And yeah, now
Yeah.
it's like you open up a file basically, and all the
Mm-hmm.
automation and everything's there.
Yep, totally.
That's fucking interesting, man. So there's
Yeah, and
no there's no real like you don't have like a release date for that yet. You just have like kind of conceptual.
No, and we've approved test presses for. We approved a test press for Australasia, which is the first one, and City of Echoes. I think we're still waiting on a test press for that. And then Fire in Our Throats, we're just turning in the mixes now, so it still has to get mastered. But I know because of the bottlenecks in production right now, the release date for Australasia is slated for November, but may move up depending on what happens with production. And if City of Echoes, it's sort of like a wild card for now, and Fire in Our Throats, so like probably 2023, but who knows?
Damn.
Yeah. Dude, the production delays are like they're not a joke, and it's the same with Relayer. It's like Relayer, our digital and cassette release are May 13th, and vinyl is a huge question mark. I mean, Gilead is doing vinyl, but we have no idea when it's going to happen.
So let me ask you a question about the vinyl release. Like, so is it going to be all that extra material is part of the vinyl package as well, or just the digital only?
So it's going to vary album by album based on the capacity of the of each record. So like Australasia has 3 bonus cuts, but I think only one of them is going on the vinyl, and then the others will be available digitally.
Yeah, because I was
there'll be like a download coupon with it and whatnot that'll come with all of the tracks.
Oh, cool. Because I was envisioning like having like 3 LPs or something like that. You know what I mean? With all the stuff you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, in my dreams, yes, but in terms Bettina, Thrill Jockey, and I are both adamant about not just putting as much in there as possible. It's also about making it affordable for the consumer, because like in a lot of cases, like we're asking our fans to re-buy an album that they might already have. So we don't want to get into a situation where it's like, fucking $50 to re-buy this album. You know what I mean? It's like we want to keep it at a price point that's like advantageous for the consumer. And the City of Echoes, the benefit there is that was always a single LP album. So that one is expanded with a bonus LP with 6 bonus cuts. And that was easy. That was easy to do. But Australasia and Fire in Our Throats are both double LPs. So the jury's still out on Fire in Our Throats, where we're going to fit the bonus material and how much of it is going to be digital only. But Australasia, we were only able to fit the 1 bonus cut on the final.
Yeah, because it would end up being like, Yes, Tales of Topographical Oceans, where there's like 4 12 inches or something like that, or 4 sides.
I hate to correct you, Mike, but that is a double LP.
Oh, wait, it
4
is,
sidelong pieces.
Oh, shit.
I think you're thinking of the live album that came out just before that.
Yes.
Yes Songs.
You're right.
The triple LP.
Yep, that's it. Thank you for correcting me on that.
I would be remiss if I didn't correct you when you're interviewing me about Relayer, a band that's named after a Yes album.
Someone would have caught it, and I'm glad that we I'm glad you dead wronged me as opposed to someone out there in the audience dead wronging me later.
That's right.
And totally, but thank you.
I corrected you with love.
Yeah, exactly. There would be some vehemence behind someone else doing it. But that is kind of the beauty of the digital format, is that it is cost effective to add like all this bonus material. So it is cool that it's like you have an analog and then you have like a supplement that might just be digital only.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's all fine and good. It's like, at the end of the day, what we want is the album to be able to stand on its own and for people to be able to listen to the album on its own. In fact, with Australasia, one idea that I got shot down for was I was like, Bettina, we should put a lock groove after the last song on the album before the bonus cut, so you have to lift the needle to get to the bonus cut, and that way it preserves the integrity of the album. She's like, do you know the emails that I would get if we did that? It's like, we're not doing that. I was like, okay, well, that's reasonable.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Is anything, no changes to the artwork or anything like that?
No, not any major changes. No.
Yeah, I didn't think
we're gonna have to relay it out from the original art files, because like some of the stuff was not up to spec or whatever. But yeah, it's all pretty much gonna look true to the originals.
That's awesome, man. Definitely keep me in the loop with all this stuff, because I'm interested, and I'll keep my eyes out for all this as it develops.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, Trevor, it was great talking to you. Great catching up. And
likewise.
Yeah, man. And hopefully sometime over the course of the year, you and I will be able to hang out in person,
God, that would be great. I miss you, buddy.
Yeah, bro. All right, man. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Take care.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy. Bye.